Here comes the night. Here comes the night.
Welcome back to another edition of More Than Saints Memories. I'm William Taylor, and yes, I just woke up. Well, anyway, we're going to now look at the 1992 campaign of the New Orleans Knight of Arena football, and we start off with January of that year, where Knight head coach Ed Khayat and his top assistant Harold Jackson resigned from the organization to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the National Football League and their new head coach, Sam Wyche, who some of you might remember from the Cincinnati Bengals. As a result, on February 6th of that year, former Tulane head coach Vince Gibson is named the new Knight head coach, where he keeps assistant Brian Gardner as the secondary coach and adds offensive coordinator Ken Meyer, defensive coordinator Ted Heath, and former Knight player Walter Hausman as offensive line coach. Now, for some of you that may not remember, Vince Gibson had been a collegiate coach for a number of years. I know he worked in the state of Kansas, was affiliated with Florida State. I think that's where he actually played college ball. And then eventually became the head coach of Tulane after Larry Smith had stepped down, which I think was in the late 70s. And Vince would stay on at Tulane, I think, into 1982. Had been out of coaching for 10 years when the New Orleans Knight job came up. Well, some other notes from that calendar year. April 11 of 92, the Knights hold tryouts in Mobile, Alabama. 7 days later, they hold tryouts in the Louisiana Superdome, and another 7 days after that, the same tryouts at the University of Southwest Louisiana, now called ULL. Then on May 21st, the Knight plays an exhibition game in Mobile, Alabama against the Orlando Predators. 3 days later, they sign wide receiver defensive backs Obie Johnson and Jack Phillips. Phillips had already played with the Knight in 1991. Now, we should point out going into this season, largely because of the turnover on the coaching staff, initially 15 of the 20 players who were with the Knight the previous year elected not to return. Now, on the 28th, this is a very interesting story. May 28, 92, the Knight plays an exhibition game in Lafayette against the Columbus Thunderbolts. Now, unfortunately, I believe they did lose that contest as they had done the previous contest with Orlando. But here's an interesting story. When the Knight was getting ready to head out to go play in Lafayette, this neutral site exhibition game, they found out the hard way that the Louisiana Superdome was not going to allow them to take their turf and bring it to Lafayette to play in the Cajun Dome. So they had to hurry up and get on the phone and call the Columbus Thunderbolts, where they had to pay the Thunderbolts the extra freight cost to send their artificial turf and the goalpost apparatus to Lafayette and set it up in their arena. Now, another interesting story that an employee of the 92 Knight told me, Vince Gibson didn't realize that this game was going to be a full four-quarter game against Columbus in Lafayette, that he actually thought it was going to be a scrimmage where, you know, the Knight has a few offensive plays, the Thunderbolts have a few offensive plays, etc. So going into that contest, they really weren't very well prepared to enter the game. Well, then on May the 30th, the Knight jumps in and hurries up and starts their regular season against the Charlotte Rage in Charlotte, and the Knight would go on to lose 43-23. Now at this point, what we're going to do, we have about an 11-minute video package looking back at the night of 92, and it starts off with an interview with Vince Gibson and Jim Gallagher, and then we'll come back and do a recap.
Kicked off its regular season tonight in Charlotte. A new year and mostly a new team. Only 6 players who played for the Knight last year are back, and they made a go of it without quarterback Mickey Guidry, whose obligation is to Sacramento of the World League. A historic night of sorts in Charlotte, where the expansion Rage played its first game ever. 17,000 fans on hand there. First quarter now, Charlotte Scooter Melander to Ryan Bethea. 6-0. It was the Rage. The Rage led 13-7 when the Knight struck. Greg Freeman got things moving. The Knight was threatening to put some points up on the board. The next play, Freeman to Elliott Searcy. A nice catch for the touchdown. 14-13, New Orleans was out in front, but watch out for Orlando. Melander to Bethea. This one covered 47 yards, almost the length of the entire field. 20-14, the Rage led at the half, and as we said, not a pretty second half. 43-23, the final. The Knight 0-1. They will look for their first win next week in Tampa. Let's talk baseball.
Vacationing, so our Jim Gallagher is here, and these days we've got football year-round, it seems like.
I love it. We got World Leagues wrapping up, arena football, Saints mini. I'm having a great time with all this football, Rob. We started off with arena football. Now, when Vince Gibson took over as the head coach of the New Orleans Knight, he promised he'd live up to his nickname, Vegas Vince. Well, tonight Vince came up snake eyes. The Knight lost their first game of the year, 43-23, to Charlotte. Now, of course, the best part of arena football is the show within the show, but a lot of trouble in this game. Fireworks going off right there. Scooter Merlander hits Ryan Bethea for the score, but the Knight did come back. Greg Freeman goes to Daryl Tillman, and this game was tied at 7 apiece. But the rage of Charlotte just too much for the hometown guys. Les Barley, the touchdown run, and the Knight loses it 43-23 the final. The Knight is now 0-1 to start the year. World League, first of all, it's been 10 years since you've been in the sidelines. It's got to be pretty much a thrill for you to be back.
Well, it's fun. It's
no more fun when you win.
It wasn't any fun last night because we didn't play real well. We thought we would beat Charlotte, and Charlotte had 17,000 people. The game was supposed to start at 7:30. It started after 8, and they had a great turnout. It was a great show, and the game wasn't 43-23. It was a close game. They scored on the last play of the game, and. But the game was 20-14 at the halftime. They scored with 22 seconds on a long pass. In the fourth quarter, we're down 6 points. We got them backed up. They're second down and 13 on their 2-yard line, and we get a pass interference call. And then right after that, they throw another long pass. So it was a close game, and we just didn't make the big plays.
That's really been the problem, though. The long passes have just been killing you this year, haven't they? I mean, last night, about 3 big balls again.
Yeah, we played really good now against Orlando. Orlando was a good team, and we played good against them. We did not play very good against this team, and they deserve a lot of the credit, but we just didn't have a real good ball game.
That's the thing I don't think a lot of people realize about arena football is it's only a 40-45-yard field, so when the ball, I mean, one deep ball, and it's all over for you. It's not like you got to go deep every time.
You can make so many, a couple mistakes they can capitalize on them so quick you can be out of it. Our guys played hard now. I'm not disappointed in their effort. They really played hard, and we're going to get a lot better. You know, we don't have our quarterback, Guidry, but Greg Tillman, not Greg Tillman, Tillman, our receiver, played real good too. Daryl Tillman, he caught 10 passes for 128 yards, but Greg Freeman did a good job for us. We didn't pass protect as well as we can, and we didn't run support very good with our secondary. But we can play a lot better, and our guys will improve. It's just it's 12 teams, and 6 of them got 1 loss, and it's going to be a long season, but we're going to end up being a good football team.
Now, you mentioned a guy we've been talking about a little bit, Mickey Guidry. Now, he'll be coming back to you. Sacramento won again today, so you got to wait another week, but he really helped you guys.
We thought we were going to get him back 2 weeks ago.
He was a big winner for you guys last year. Came in, gave the team a big spark last year.
Good leader, local guy, you know, and he's got experience in arena ball down. He'll really help us, but we lost some guys from last year. You know, they had a receiver named Culpepper that signed with Tampa Bay, and a receiver named Barney that was the Ironman of the year. They had an excellent lineman last year that played real well for them, and so that we don't have back. And they had another quarterback, Totten. Right. So we don't have many players back from last year, but we've got some good players. It takes time to get sort of acclimated into this game. And our coaches, Ken Meyer and Ted Heath, had never seen a game. And it's going to be a little tough for us at first, but I think we're going to improve a lot. And I'm really proud of the job our coaches and players are doing. We've got 2 coaches, Brian Gardner and Walter Hausman, that are 2 young guys that are doing a real good job for us. But we just got to keep working, and we're going to get a lot better.
Vince, thank you very much. It'll be an excellent ball game. On the road again next week, then you're home.
We play Tampa Bay, and they're the champions.
Defending champions, and of course, next week, 15th, be at home in the Dome.
Be at home in the Dome. And boy, this arena football is a super show.
It's a good one.
I tell you, the Charlotte Rage, they put a great show on. All that fireworks and cheerleading, and boy, they got some pretty girls out there too.
Well, you gotta like that. Yeah. But it's gonna be nothing like the Dome coming up on the 15th.
The Dome will be great. Can't wait to that first game in New Orleans.
Vince, thank you very much.
Far from it tonight in Tampa, as the New Orleans Knight went up against the Tampa Bay Storm. The Knight was trying for its first win of the Arena Football League season. The final score was 64-60. Not much defense from either team. The Storm scored there. Jay Gruden throws a touchdown pass, and they get a little bit of celebration. The Storm scored 64 points. The Knight scored 60. Was it college basketball? No. Arena ball. There you see the final. New Orleans now 0-2 on the year.
Superdome. The New Orleans Knight will debut at home against the Cleveland Thunderbirds. Now, the Knight are 0-2 on the year, but they've been competitive in both defeats. And now things are looking a little more promising because this week the Knight welcomed back quarterback Mickey Guidry, and they also traded for former Saint defensive lineman Bruce Clark. Now, the much-traveled Clark is a welcome addition to the Knights' defense. Last week they allowed 64 points, and you can bet Clark will certainly put some punch into the Knights' defense. Now, Guidry is getting a late start this season because he was in the World League playing for the World League champion Sacramento Surge. Knight fans are just glad to have Mickey back, as last year he led the Knight to 3 wins.
I did come here to play, and if he wants me to play, I'll be ready. I think I'm at the top of my game.
Go get him, knock him out. Football is it's not no egos, no anything. It's just football the way we used to do it Sandlot days when we were growing up.
Now, the Knight hosted the Cleveland Thunderbirds. They'll do it tomorrow in the Superdome. Game time set for 7:30. It's going to be a wild one.
With an 0-2 record against the Cleveland Thunderbolts, bent on upstaging the homeboys. Not a bad crowd tonight, but bad news if you were trying to follow the bouncing ball, because Mickey Guidry came off the pines in the second quarter, hit a couple of quick ones, but this one gets loose to Wyatt Harris. The Knights defense had the ball on the turf right here. Darren Mullenberg with a sack on Cleveland's quarterback, Major Harris. The Knight down it at the 1. Then Harris put it down again as Bruce Clark jumps on this one in his first game here. The Knight later scored to trail just 7-6, but they were trailing 23-9 in the fourth quarter. We have an update on that? I don't know, but it looks like Cleveland has beaten them 30-15. They are 0-3 to start the season.
Scared many people, and the Thunderdome has been a dud. But tonight, the Knight tried to rectify those situations. The Knight was going for its first win of the year against the Detroit Drive in the Superdome. The Knight looking good early. Mickey Guidry to Elliott Searcy for the touchdown, 7-0. Over 8,000 fans at the Dome, including this man. Not bad at all for a winless team. Guidry then rolled another 6. Nice play to Brian Wiggins. Wiggins says, hey, I'm number 1. Yep. And then he does his thing. Now, the Knight had a 20-7 lead, but again, the second half did them in. Gilbert Renfro with the long touchdown pass for Detroit. The drive drove the Knight into the ground. 66-41, the final score. The Knight now zip and 5 on the year.
Things would go slowly at first, but this is getting ridiculous. The Knight fell to 0-6 Friday night in Albany. Now, the Knight's Mickey Guidry had a good evening. He rolls out and connects with a diving Brian Wiggins for the score. Then new kicker Teddy Garcia, who was just picked up this week, made a nice debut. He drills the field goal through right there. The Knight actually led this game 20-14, but then the Firebirds soared. Quarterback Tom Porras hits Myron Jefferson, who eats the wall. In all, Porras threw for 9 touchdown passes. The Knight did not score in the second half at all. The Firebird, 67 total points. They beat the Knight 67-29 the final. The Knight is
focused on the positive. The Knight drew over 14,000 fans for the game last night in the Superdome against Orlando. That's it. There's really nothing else positive to say. The Knight is 0-7 after losing to the Predators. The Knight did take the lead early on, first quarter. Elliott Searcy will take this kickoff in his own end zone. Some nice moves, and 56 yards later, touchdown. The Knight was up 9-3, but that was the last lead they would have. Orlando quarterback Ben Bennett threw 4 touchdown passes on the Knight. This one goes to Herky Walls and tied it at 9. Then Bennett hit Barry Wagner for the score here. At the half, it was 22-12. Wagner just barely got the ball across the plane. Knight quarterback Mickey Guidry just got married. He skipped his honeymoon, waiting till after the season is over. He may want to go now. The final. But they didn't get as many as they hoped, and they also didn't get the result that they were hoping for.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah, I know. The New Orleans Knight at 0-7 against the 2-5 Charlotte Rage tonight in the Superdome. This game was maybe the best chance for the Knight to get a win this season. The Knight did cut ticket prices by $5 for the game, but as you see, some fans came out with their versions of the Aints bags. Things look good early on, don't they always? First quarter, Mickey Guidry to Richard Estelle for the touchdown. The Rage still led 7-6. Later, the Rage let the ball go. Brian Wiggins picked it up for the Knight. People got so excited they ran in front of the camera. Get out of the way. Touchdown Knight. New Orleans in the lead, 12-7, but they would go on to squander it one more time. 38-33 the final. Charlotte wins it The Knight now 0-8 with one more home game.
Well, here's a recap of the rest of the season. Some of these points may have already been mentioned in the video we just presented because unfortunately we do not have footage of every game that the Knight played in '92. On June the 6th, they would lose at Tampa Bay 64-60. More than likely, that was the most competitive game of the year the Knight did play. And then after that loss, they re-signed quarterback Mickey Guidry, who once again was trying to get involved with the World League of American Football. And the Knight traded for former Saints defensive end Bruce Clark. Bruce Clark's Arena Football rights had belonged to the Detroit Drive in the '91 season where he played there. And during the first part of '92, he was playing once again in the World League of American Football, I think with Barcelona, but they still had to obtain his rights from Detroit in order to have him play in New Orleans. Then on the 15th of June, they lose their home opener to the Cleveland Thunderbolts, 30-15. 5 days later, that's followed by another loss to Arizona, 23-15. Well, the Knight, unfortunately, would end up the season 0-10. And I'll skip all the dates and make it easy on y'all. Losing at Detroit, 66-41. At the Albany Firebirds, 67-29. At home to Orlando, 45-20. Then on July 14th, it's announced that Knight part owner David Briggs states publicly the team will be back for the next season. July 16th, the Knights signed wide receiver / defensive back Lolo James and fullback linebacker Michael Lindsay. 2 days after that, they lose at home to Charlotte 38-33, then lose at home to Tampa Bay 53-14, and what would be their last game as an Arena Football franchise on July 31 of '92, lose at Orlando 62-8. Now, before we recap with some of the season honors that some of the players got, this same employee from the '92 campaign had told me that one of the problems during the season was that many within the organization felt majority owner Mike McBath really didn't seem that concerned with the Knight, that he had been previously, as we mentioned in other videos, a part owner of the Orlando Predators, and he had seemed more concerned about the Predators than he was the Knight. And as a result, the financial situation of the Knight didn't work out very well. There's been some speculation as to what was the real financial issues with the Knight. Largely, basically, attendance wasn't as good in '92 as it was in '91, because for people who don't realize it, when you have an event in the Louisiana Superdome, at that time it cost an average of $50,000 to keep the lights running for any kind of extended event, which a football game would be considered as such. So there's a lot of your expense money right there. Because remember, in those days, the players only got paid between $400 and $550 per game. So anyway, it was an interesting situation, but what was not really well reported by the media in the '92 season was that with 3 regular season games left, the Knight completely ran out of money. And as a result, the league office took over the franchise and paid all the bills for the rest of the season. The problem was when that occurred, Mike McBath and his partners lost their rights as owners to the team. So when the season ended, the Arena Football Board of Directors decided to shut the franchise down permanently and not try to resell it to another group, and maybe could have kept it going. I know some of the employees were disappointed that's the way it went down, but once again, Arena Football thought it was probably best just to cut their losses at that point. Season honors in '92 went to lineman Doc Wise, his first team All-Arena. Matt Martinez led the Knight in rushing, Mickey Guidry in passing. Brian Wiggins in receiving, Elliot Searcy in kick returns, Bruce Miller in total tackles, Fred Davis in sacks, and tied for the interception lead are Alvin Williams, James Jones, and Cedric Moses. A couple names that you didn't hear me mention in here included Milton Barney and Willie Culpepper, because both of those players went on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL, joining their old head coach Ed Kayette and former assistant coach Harold Jackson. Well, it looks like that's going to do it for the detailed versions of our look back at the New Orleans Knight of Arena Football. However, we still are going to have a few more episodes coming up where we're going to show extended footage of some of the games that we were able to save. That does it for now. I'm William Taylor. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, we'll get with you down the road.
Here comes the